dropped another result this past weekend, losing to Toronto FC. That also drops them to last place in the Eastern Conference standings. Welcome to PHLY Union Podcast. We've got Tyler Zulli, myself, Renee Washington, JP Zapata, as we are recapping the weekend. We've got a lot to get into this weekend. Looking at the Union's play, we have to, of course, unpack if this is possibly the worst start to the MLS season we've seen from the Philadelphia Union in some time. Yes, it is. And we're going to figure out and look back exactly on that time. We've also got to talk through just all the chaos around soccer right now because, Tyler, I'll start with you. It's been a chaotic time right now across soccer. This summer has brought us so many great international matches, and we knew this. We have Copa America, we have Euros, we have all the different friendlies and international tournaments that are happening. We knew that would bring passion, culture, excitement. We saw Spain this weekend win the Euros. We saw in a crazy game, and JP's not happy about this one. For sure, Argentina knocks off Colombia in Copa America. So although the Union have been a craze right now, at least we didn't have fans barging into the stadium, bursting in the same way they were down in Miami at the Hard Rock Stadium. Colombian fans and Argentina fans specifically. So soccer right now, we got to get into all that, and we will. We're going to dive deep. We're going to talk through it. But before we actually look at the results themselves, an exciting time for soccer, but also like a very chaotic time for soccer right now.
Yeah, I know. I know a lot of people are going to sit here and go, well, if this is how the pitches like MetLife are going to handle Copa, how are they going to handle the World Cup? And listen,
that's my first thought.
I understand there were a lot of problems yesterday, a lot of problems. I think that the World Cup will have a little bit more of a heightened security, I would think. I know somebody, I forget who it was, somebody on Twitter brought up that like the gate check will probably be hundreds of yards away. Like your ticket check is not just going to be at the gate like it would be if you were to walk into Citizens Bank Park or walk into MetLife for a Giants game. There's going to be extra countermeasures to something like this. That being said, it was a pretty disastrous evening for what should have been the culmination of a tournament that's been a ton of fun. And like I know, like you said, I know JP's probably still wallowing in his sorrows about the loss. But you had an opportunity this weekend with the Euros wrapping up last weekend, with Copa wrapping up this weekend. You had an opportunity to put on display a lot of really good soccer, and the match itself was a good match.
Yeah.
The issue is it's just going to be barred in frustrations for a lot of people talking about safety and security measures, talking about how do you fix this for not next summer, but the summer following when there are going to be tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of fans on hand and, across the country, whether it be in Philly or in MetLife or in LA or whatever the case may be. There's going to be a ton of supporters for all these teams. They're going to have to get this thing figured out somewhat soon.
Definitely. And listen, there's a lot to talk about here because this weekend brought us a lot to digest and process. And I felt like for sports in general right now, they're in such a crazy part of the summer with the Olympics coming up and so many players in general getting called up to international duty. The Union's own, and actually, I'm going to start off early with a little positive. Exciting news for David Vasquez. The homegrown was called up to the U.S. U20 men's youth national team for the upcoming 2024 CONCACAF men's U20 championship. That's in Mexico, July 19th to August 4th. And so great to see David Vasquez get that opportunity where the tournament has 4 nations that will be going to the 2025 FIFA U20 World Cup in Chile. So awesome that he gets, for the first time, a U20 national team call-up. And we've been seeing Vasquez get appearances with the U19 team. We've been seeing him get the call-up for the Union senior squad in that sense. And great news for him. 17 appearances on the U17 team where he had 4 assists in the 2023 CONCACAF U17 championship. They secured a second-place finish in a 2023 U17 World Cup berth. He's been quietly chipping away in a young talent to watch, and that's what this summer also brings. These international competitions bring opportunities for players, all ages, all backgrounds, to be able to represent their country, be able to go out and get a chance to play in front of your fans and have halftime performances like Shakira and different things like that. I was out this weekend, and I saw so many different spots. I wasn't out to that many places, but the places that I went to, I should say, I saw soccer on so many TVs That's amazing. We love that. I loved seeing the matchup between Uruguay and Canada playing on Saturday night, and people that were like, I'm my entire Sunday is around the championship. That's it. That's all I'm locked in for the final. So it's a great time for soccer right now. It's just unfortunate, I think, as we look at the Philadelphia Union specifically, you've got more eyes on the game right now, and you continue to just drop results. And unfortunately, this weekend was no different. So JP is finishing up with the Fly guys over there in our other studio, and he'll be joining us in a moment. Here's some of the details of this past weekend. The Union lost. That's the details. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
This just in, the Union lost. Unfortunately, the Union had the lead. Tai Baribo gets his third MLS goal, his third of the season. He scores the goal in the 39th minute off a beautiful service from Kai Wagner. And with that goal, the Union take the lead 1-0. Now, this is another opportunity for the Union. You're up on the road 1-0. This is a situation they haven't been in as much. They've actually been struggling to score first at times. But I feel like the last few games, what we've been seeing from them is they're in the game early, they're scoring first or tying the game up early, and it's that late second half push that's caused the Union to drop results. And this was no different. We saw the own goal against Jack Elliott in the 74th minute. DeAndre Kerr, the sub, comes in and was an impact, sets up for that goal to tie things up for Toronto, and then gets the game, what would be the game winner at the 78th minute off of the assist from Insigne and Flores. This was another game the Union had in the bag and gave up 2 late goals. You give up goals 4 minutes apart. We saw this the last few outings. We've been seeing this from the Union, and that's what's most concerning, as they are now sitting at 15th place of 15 in the East with 4 wins, 10 losses, 9 draws. They only have a -4 goal differential, though, which says a lot about this team. When you look at how they're losing, how they're falling short, they're scoring goals. The Union have 37 goals on the season. Their offensive production has been there. Defensively, though, has continued to be the issue. And this past weekend, unfortunately, was no different, guys, where we saw them. You're feeling good. You're on the road. They're finally in a position to possibly walk away with 3 points. And yet again, here they are dropping a loss. We saw it against Montreal. 2 late goals. They lose that game 4-2. We saw it against Chicago as well. This is another time, as the winless streak continues, that the Union are unable to close out a full 90 minutes. Some could say they're pressing for that insurance goal or pressing to take the lead that's caused them to give up a late goal. But at the end of the day, you cannot continue with an already struggling team to then give up late goals. JP, I'm curious your thoughts on, what's up, buddy? I'm curious your thoughts on the Union's play and how they have swung. It used to be, not too long ago, we were complaining about them giving up early goals, getting scored on 5, 6, 7 minutes in, getting scored on off the opening whistle. But now it's the opposite. They're scoring, they score first, they give up 2 late goals. Again, that's 3 out of the last 4 games, because of course Red Bulls was a 0-0 scoreless draw. But you look at all of their recent outings, the last 3 out of 4 especially, and even actually Charlotte was 2 second half goals. It's been a lot of second half goals that they're giving up. Charlotte was 5-6 minutes apart. This past weekend was 4 minutes apart. Montreal was like 2-3 minutes apart. Chicago, I'm going to get the exact timestamp because that was close also. Chicago was the 3 goals from the 82-minute on. You went from being up 3-1 to losing 4-3 with 3 goals given up in the final 10, 11 minutes of the game. That has now been the issue, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, Renee, I mean, like, you know well, like, you played the game. Everything that's going on right now is all mental. And it's unfortunate because you want to kill the team. And I know we already got people commenting curtain now. I already saw someone already made the T-shirts for Sugarman to sell a team. I know we're all frustrated, but, like, right now the problem is, like, you're going through flux with your roster, right? Like, you just got done the big international break with the Euros and Copa America. You finally get Gazak and Jose Brujo Martinez back, which is great. But now you don't have Jack Micklin and Nate Harriel because they're going over to the Olympics with Team USA. So you're going through your growing pains as you have some young kids, and you're having an influx with the roster, with the starting lineup. Every week it feels like, or every match it feels like it's a different starting lineup. When the Union, and we always make the joke about running back, but the Union the past couple of years, they've had the same starting 11 for majority of the games. There was that cohesive unit for the last 2 years. And now this year, when you have the same team, you're having injuries. They're having call-ups. And this is what happens. You blow the lead. And this is, you talked about, I mean, this is not union soccer. We've always talked about how mentally strong Jim Curtin's sides have always been. And this year, it's just because of the influx of different players in the starting lineup, it's just tough. I mean, Kerr comes into the second half. He provides and Insigne too, provides an offensive spark here. The second half subs for both Toronto and Philadelphia, they were tactical subs. And unfortunately, John Herdman and company, they got the upper hand. And unfortunately, Renee, it feels like too many times that's happening to the Union. And you're just wondering yourself as a fan, like the thing is like, I do generally believe still that they'll find a way to turn it around. But the question now, Renee, will it be too late for them to turn around as they are now dead last in the Eastern Conference? I think they are 6 points above San Jose for the worst record in the MLS, or the worst point total in the MLS. So obviously it's very different this year. You know, the defense is not as tight as it usually is. You know, the attack actually hasn't been terrible, which has been a positive, right? But you're just having too many mental lapses, and now we're talking about 10 straight winless streak, first time in club history, and this is uncharted territory for the U, Renee.
Sadly, the last time that they won back May 18th, which feels like it was so long ago, that 3-0 win over New England. That's one win in the last 17 outings, because it was when they tied Atlanta United. I still remember this day like it was yesterday. Yeah. They had a week off. They played Nashville, they won 2-1. Then they had 8 days until they played Atlanta United, which wasn't really a long break. But in those 8 days, things changed. They tie Atlanta United, then they go on to lose their first game to RSL, and from there, it has continued to spiral down. So that's 17 matches since that Nashville 2-1 victory. They have only won one of those games. And when you look at how close the league is and how competitive the league is, you can't afford to make these mistakes. And Jim Curtin has talked about it. I know, as Brett is mentioning in the chat and other people have said, it's time for Jim Curtin to be out. But unfortunately, you wonder how much of this is something that's his issue versus this team not being ready for injuries, not being ready for the summer slate of schedule. We talked about it. What did they do? Running it back was fine to have the same core, but what did they do to add depth that way when you had injuries happen, when you had guys missing? You could still continue at the same level. In Miami, without Messi and Luis Suarez, they've continued at the same level. I don't think they haven't lost a game. You know, good teams are prepared for this. And there's no surprise here. An injury is actually a surprise. You never know going into the season. Like, we could not have predicted Andre Blake's injury, for instance. But you know injuries will happen. So you always have to have, in the back of your mind, backup pieces for each role. And then on top of that, you knew it was going to be a lot of soccer this year. You knew there was going to be the Olympics coming up. You knew you were going to have significant spurts of the season without players. And to have them now in a position where you are winless in your last 10, and of those last 10, you look at some of these results. Like, I know I mentioned Chicago, I mentioned Montreal. You actually have games where up until the final 10 minutes or so, you're either tied or winning. You had a 2-goal lead and end up losing by 1. You had a tied game and you end up giving up 2 goals at the end of regulation and into stoppage time. These are things that it's like I don't even know if I've seen this before, to be honest, because you see teams go on these winless streaks where it's a 1-0, 2-0, whatever the score may be. They're just unable to win. The Union are actually winning games until they're not. Like, it's like they win, and then it just all hits the fan. And to have now, I would rather go back to what it was before of giving up early goals, because at least you had the entire game to make up for it. To now be giving up not 1, but 2 goals in the final 10 minutes of each game, or late second half goals, I should say, that just leaves the game on such a sour note. You go from the excitement of being in the lead, thinking you're finally going to break this winless streak, and now you end, it's like tail between your legs, and you're like walking out there just completely disappointed. So I think I'm most frustrated about, not only are they unprepared, it feels like, and set up for failure, but it feels like it's just been a combination of so many unlucky issues that they have not been able to put together a full 90 minutes.
And the mantra for the past couple of years too for this team was the Union always wanted to play with that lead, because they always just wanted to play defense and just tire you the F out. And the best part was, in the second half, they always had those substitutes that always come out and then just deliver the final blow on a team. And right now, they just can't even do that. Honestly, Renee, like right now, it is the fact that, yes, they're getting the lead and they're not able to hold on to it. But like we've also seen them, go down early and they can't find a way to come back. Like either way, like this team can't get. They're their own worst enemy.
I was going to say they can't get out of their own way.
They're their own worst enemy right now. You talk about the biggest rival for the Union in 2024. We always bring up the Red Bull and NYCFC. It's the Philadelphia Union 2024. We're our own worst rival here. It's just an absolute mess right now, man. And like. I know, like, everyone's like, all right, summer period's here. Now we can finally get some depth and get some transfers in here. But, like, we've been here before. Like, when have we had a summer transfer come in and make a big impact? Like, even Gazdag in his first year when he came here in the summer, like, he was solid in the rest of the way. And I think part of the problem was Kasper Shabilka was not the right striker to play with him. But, like, it took him that following year in 2022 for him to finally erupt. And it's just going to be tough for this team. I don't know how they're going to get out of it. And then the problem is, too, like, I do feel like they're putting out sides that should be able to get results. But they are, again, they're their worst enemy, that they just can't get results here.
And a big part of that, I know, is Julian's mentioning in the chat, the guys are gassed. The options are limited from the bench. Whereas Toronto is able to bring in a guy. You're bringing in substitutions that literally help you win the game. But this goes back to the point I was making earlier. There's no reason you should have to overextend guys right now. There's no reason they should be so gassed, because the work should have been done proactively to make sure that heading into this summer stretch, the Union had subs, bodies, and not just, listen, it's fine calling up a CJ Only and a David Vasquez. You need guys that are MLS ready, that are going to be able to come in and give you a solid 20 minutes, that are going to be able to come in and help you score a goal, help you close out the game. So, yes, they're definitely fatigued physically and mentally. Let's be honest. You are, in the last 17 games, you have one win. And then on top of that, if we look bigger picture at the season, they've had so many 3-3 draws, 3-2 games, 6-0 loss to Pachuca. Like, this season has been a nightmare in the sense of, like, mentally, these guys have been through it. They've been through the rigmarole.
Try to say that 10 times fast.
They've been going through it. And now you're asking them, after all of that craziness in the start of this season, to now in the hardest part of the year when it's hot out, we're getting excessive heat warnings left and right. You have no subs. You're missing players. And obviously, if you're missing players, these are your better players. A Jack McGlynn and Nate Harriel getting the call to the Olympics, big pieces. Jose and Damian and even Andre with his injury, these are big pieces. You're not missing your 18th, 19th guy. You're missing starters. So you go from the struggles of the start of the season to, oh, wait, let's add a little bit more to stress to you and have you play low numbers, low subs, beat down, different starting lineups every match, as you mentioned, and then expect you to get results. So I know, yes, Patrick, they're typically one of the most mentally strong teams, and they have now become very unstable because you're missing that core. You're missing that veteran leadership. You're missing, even the fight that we've seen from this team in the past. As you talked about, they have had games this season. Down 2-0, you come back. Down 3-0, you come back. But how long do you expect something like that? That's not sustainable, especially with all these extra things. So it's just been a lot of chaos, unfortunately, for the Union right now. And the struggles have been very evident.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. We're having a lot of struggles. They're stressing us all out. I completely understand that. But, guys, if you're stressed out like I am with the Philadelphia Union, you guys need to make sure you sit back, relax, and just chill. And take my word of advice, you can chill and sit back with a nice cold Coors Light, ladies and gentlemen. This past weekend, full disclosure, it was a bachelor party. All right, we were having a lot of fun, me and the boys. And guys, they had a whole bunch of different array of different beers, and I was like, guys, pulled it right out the back seat. We need the Coors Light for the bachelor party, all right? Threw those bad boys right in the cooler. Everyone was enjoying some nice cold Coors Light, guys. Because listen, guys, when the mountains turn blue, it's as cold as the Rockies. Coors Light is cold lagered, cold filtered, and cold packaged for that much smoother finish. When you embrace a chill mindset, it's a good time to choose chill and crack open a Coors Light. Coors Light is mountain cold refreshing, crisp refreshing as the Colorado Rockies. And guys, whether it be for a bachelor party or be a tailgate for the Phillies or the Union, there's nothing better than selecting Coors Light. Make the most of the times that you choose to chill. Choose Coors Light. And the best part about it, guys, get Coors Light delivered right to your front step. You don't have to go to the beer store or the liquor store anymore. You can choose to get delivered All you got to do is go to CoorsLight.com/PHLY soccer, and they will deliver it through Instacart. It's the best, guys, right? Right before the big game, right? You don't have to go right to the beer store, have it right delivered. It's awesome. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. And thank you to our friends over at Coors Light.
And not everybody can enjoy Coors Light because, of course, you have to be 21 or older. So if you, of any age, want to enjoy some refreshing drinks, Rite Aid has them for you. The Rite Aid Refreshery provides you with a line of beverages that range from your familiar family favorites to revitalizing options that are great for you. And especially with the heat of the summer, as we're talking through all the frustrations of the craziness of summer soccer and all the hectic schedules, you want to make sure that you are hydrated to be able to best enjoy that. Rite Aid today has everything from just your brands of water, purified spring electrolyte, distilled and alkaline bottled water that they have, flavored bottles of water, as well as coconut water, which I'm a huge coconut water fan. I love being able to mix it with I just got some more coconut water actually to stock up. Mixing that is great with some, I mix it with a little sprinkle of lemon sliced in there and different things, because coconut water gives you a power-packed array of essential nutrients. It helps keep you hydrated. It's fat-free, it's GMO, non-GMO, gluten-free, as well as having less than 1% sugar. They also have some of the nice refreshing iced teas and lemonades. Summer, iced tea and lemonade, it goes hand in hand. Sweetened with real sugar, no preservatives, plus some other juices for you, whether it's their pineapple, their cranberry, their apple drinks, their strawberry lemonade, or even their cold-pressed juices. Their cold-pressed juices give you 100% fruits and veggies. They are delicious. They are no added sugars, non-GMO as well as organic, and giving you you don't have to worry about artificial flavors. It's very flavorful drinks. So over at Rite Aid today, make sure that you're taking advantage of the opportunity to stay hydrated, especially during these hot summer months. You can get refreshment also delivered. That's right. Right now, while you're watching the show, you can shop online at riteaid.com/shop for same-day delivery, or you can buy online. You can pick it up in store. And either way, get an opportunity to check out the refreshing products over at Rite Aid. All right, what's unfortunately not refreshing? The Union right now. Because yes, Julian, none of this was a surprise. That's what Julian commented, so I had to read it exactly as she said it.
I love that, Julian.
They knew they'd be missing players and injuries would occur, and it wasn't addressed. It was not addressed. Bringing up Union 2 players is not going to cut it. This has been an issue that we've seen from the Union historically, of not being able to prepare for keeping up with the rest of the league. We've seen other teams doing it. I brought up Inter Miami. They're not the only ones. Other teams are doing it. They're able to work through this summer schedule without really missing a beat. And for the Union to have, coming into this season, the home strength that we've seen from them, where you, through March, were 38, 3, and 16 in all competitions at home. Since then, have they won at home, guys?
That's pretty crazy, too.
Crazy.
It was a fortress at Subaru Park for the longest time, and now they can't get out of their own way. It's just, that's the craziest part of this winless streak. Insane.
And then now it's sprinkled onto the away side, because there was a stretch where the Union were actually the only unbeaten team on the road, just like they were the only unbeaten team across MLS play, and that's also changed, because then they swung and they had they've had the longest. They've had the longest winless streak, or they're up there, I should say, right now. It feels like for the longest winless streak, because they haven't been able to win. You went from having the longest unbeaten streak that you were in the conversation of. That's how they started out the season. At one point, they were 3-0-5 on the road, where they were one game shy of the longest unbeaten streak to start a season set by the 2013 Portland Timbers. Since then, it's been all downhill. It's been a bumpy road. It's been all downhill from there. So you go from the swings of the success at home, the swings of the success on the road, to literally, as you mentioned, it feels like they can't get out of their own way. And now those things you can count on, the old reliables of the Union, do not exist right now. So I just feel like that in itself is part of the issues.
And all these issues we're talking about with the Union, like whether it be the mental lapses that's going on, the lack of depth, everything kind of just points towards the front office and just the way the lack of planning that we had for the season. I mean, the big one, Renee, is you're missing your 3-time goalie of the year in Andre Blake, and then we have to rely on 2 youngsters in Oliver Zemla and Andrew Rick. That's a really tough spot to put 2 young goalies in. That's a position at a young age. Unless you're like a great one, like it's hard to just go right in there and have some success. And that's what we're asking for some of these 2 young players. I mean, we've had obviously the whole lineup has been interchanging, and you go from the beginning of the year, you had Ua and Carranza. Ua's been dealing with some injuries. You had to rely on either Gazak, a little bit of Quinn, a little bit of Chris Donovan. The only bright spot, honestly, has been Tai Baribo.
He has been a bright spot.
Ty's been a really bright spot.
And we knew that, though. How many times have we been on this show talking about we would love to see more of Tai Baribo.
Just want to see him, that's all.
And now we are finally getting Tai Baribo, and he's scoring goals. He makes good runs. He's aggressive. He plays hard. We called this before that we were wondering, why are we not, we see him getting minutes with the Israel national team. Why are we not seeing him with the Union get any minutes? But even as you mentioned with Andre Blake, not only are they missing one of your key pieces in net, but then you lose Julian Carranza. On both ends of the pitch, you're taking big hits. And that's before you even factor in the guys missing for international duty, the guys that get injured, and Ali Bedoya that goes down with an injury. We, again, knew this was coming, though. Was there any surprise, guys, when Julian Carranza's deal went through with Feyenoord? Was there any surprise that even Andre Blake, now how he got injured and how long it's taken is a surprise, but how many times have we talked about Andre Blake being like the one guy that really holds this team together?
Yeah.
He's human. At some point, it was going to catch up to him. He's also in the 30-plus crew now. He's got a lot of minutes under his belt. He's played a lot. We are not surprised by any of this.
Did Andre Blake's absence just expose our back line? Like we brought that up earlier in the year, but like now it's been a month since we talked, at least a month since we talked about that, and this back line looks even worse. That first goal, what were we doing, Jack Elliott? Like, there's a lot of goals throughout the entire season where we're just thinking about that. We got my boy John Krisafi checking on in, can't get out of their own way, can't even beat any team. Think about that, Renee. Can't even beat teams in the lower half of the table.
Which is why they're last place.
Yeah, the only win was against New England. We got New England this upcoming Wednesday. Like, do you honestly feel good at all about that match?
No. New England's actually been winning games.
Yeah, that too.
They've actually been moving in the right direction.
And we beat a 10-man New England team at that point. Philly has become legitimately the worst team in the East. Again, 2 seasons removed from that final, which is absolutely wild to think about as well, Renee. The fact that we're 2 years away from that historical year, one of the best, if not the best, MLS match of all time. And now we're talking about blowing this up essentially. Like, think of the narrative you want. But right now, it's just not fun. Whether you're thinking about selling the team or whether you're thinking about, this team is not that far off from turning it back around. Regardless, it's just in a bad spot that 2 years ago, we were in the final. We were the top of the top, us and LAFC. Yeah,
and as John mentioned, New England's actually signing players. I think there's a lot of questions. There's a lot more questions that have come out of the last stretch than answers for me. One, obviously, there was clearly no plan to replace Julian Carranza. We all knew in the offseason that Julian Carranza come summer, we literally said, we were sitting right here talking about with you guys and saying there's a really good chance Julian Carranza doesn't make it past this summer. Here he is gone. What was the plan to replace him? What was the true plan? Andre Blake's injury. Obviously, they brought in Oliver Zemla. There was a half plan there. But what really was the plan defensively in his absence? What was also the plan offensively to get guys like Daniel Gazdag and Mikel Ua able to score? Because Gazdag right now, let's be honest, he still is a PK machine.
Yeah.
I love him. I love the fact that he's a cool guy, friend. Like, I say this with all due respect, but what is being done to help him score goals in the run of play? What is being done to help him, especially knowing Julian Carranza was going to be gone, because we knew that. What was actively being done to get Danny going in the run of play once Julian Carranza was gone? It feels like everything that we knew negatively that was going to happen has happened, but there was nothing done proactively to prepare for that.
Yeah.
Because you had to get this offense going. You had to get Tai Baribo, should have been had minutes. Quinn Sullivan, you're getting Jack McGlynn scoring more goals, but we knew he'd be missing. You had to solidify the midfield. All these things that we're seeing, these are controllables. There's no reason why they should still be dealing with some of these variables. An injury to Andre is one thing because you didn't know you'd have to count on Oliver Zemla this much.
Yep.
But the absence of Julian Carranza is unacceptable for this to be such a big issue.
Well, perfect point, Renee, because their thought was Tai Baribo would be the replacement for Julian Carranza, which is fine.
But why wasn't he getting minutes then earlier to start building that chemistry?
Drop the mic. No, literally. We thought Baribo was going to be the replacement, which is fine, but dude, put him out there, get him acclimated, right? And I get it, he was going through some injuries, but there was a point of time where we just straight up were not playing him.
I remember.
And he didn't have enough time to plan. And that way, him and Ua could have gotten some chemistry down,
Right.
So at this point now, they would be comfortable playing with each other. Now, what's going on is but besides everything else that's wrong on the pitch with this team, now you have Ua and Gazdag and Baribo all have to get on the same page. This is what we're talking about.
And the saddest part about this all is the issues are not even offensive. Like, as much as I want to complain, and we are complaining about the lack of proactiveness offensively, guys, the Union across the league, I was actually looking at some various stats. So the Union are top half in corner kicks of the league. Expected goals, take that stat however you want it. Same thing. They're right in the middle of the league. But also in terms of shots, they're 4th in the league in shots. They are top 7 in the league, number 7 in shots on target. Even in goals, the Union are sitting in that top half. Like, it's not even that they're offensively struggling in terms of production. It's defensively, when you look at the issues of the Union. Defensively, they're also top 10, I should say, in goals against. Shots against, they're actually sitting in a relatively decent spot, which to me that's not even a stat that's really kept well. Clean sheets, forget about it, because the Union are not in a good spot with clean sheets. Save percentage, same thing. They're one of the worst teams in the league in terms of save percentage. No surprise there. But it's not even that they're giving up a lot of shots, to be honest. The issue is I remember playing on teams like this where a team would come down like one time and score. The Union feels like that. They'll be on the attack, get caught in transition, caught flat, and it's just like, whoa. And then as of late, that one mistake is leading to a second goal. But it's not even like there were games early in the season you can consistently point to they were under assault. And we've seen some of that too in stretches. But offensively, they're taking it to teams. They're creating corners. They're creating set pieces like the goal Kai Wagner finds for Tai Baribo. They're creating offensively. But defensively, this team is on so many different wavelengths. It's not organized. The communication's not there. I already talked about the issues with the body language, the defensive pressure, the lack of like organization and their help defending. It has not been there. And the biggest difference that's changed is Andre Blake. Otherwise, this is the same back unit that we've seen. So what's really changing here? As you mentioned, is the defense really getting that exposed? Andre wasn't out there 1v1 defending for people. Andre wasn't out there clearing crosses and organizing in transition on the pitch the same way. A goalkeeper, MLS goalkeeper of the year goalkeeper at that big of a difference that this defense is in shambles at times.
I mean, if you look at Saturday's match, like the first half, they look solid. And Jim chose to line up the team in the 3-back set, and I thought that was smart. What messed up was John Herdman in Toronto. They changed up the tactics, and Philly really couldn't, because like, what are you going to change? What are you going to change tactically with what you have on your bench, right? Like we're still really thin in that portion of this team, and so like that's where it messed up the U, and the Union just allowed one, and that's the other thing too, Renee. Like we talked about defense, being mentally strong. Those were the two things that this team were constantly doing over the past 2 seasons. And now both of those things they struggle with, especially mentally. They allow one goal and they don't have that short-term memory anymore. It feels like
so true.
It's a domino effect and everything kind of just falls apart. And at the end of the game, they just seem really frustrated. And I talked about it with Gabe last week from We the Union on Monday, but like Renee, like when you're thinking about a captain, you're thinking about a leader. When moments like this, when stuff is hitting the wall, you look up to your leader.
Who is that for the Union?
Glez is wearing the band while Ali and Andre's out, and unfortunately, he's having his own struggles as well. So when you're struggling like that, it's natural. Like you're looking at big brother, big sister, and right now they don't have that because big brother is also struggling. Leadership's been a problem too. We haven't talked about that, but it's a big problem too.
Yeah, you can't put someone else's oxygen mask on until you put yours on. And right now this team is gasping for air. It has been an issue of leadership. It has been an issue of the people that you are supposed to be able to turn to in those difficult moments. Jakob Glesnes, Ali Bedoya, Jack Elliott, Andre Blake, they're either injured or they're not playing well. And so right now the Union are looking for help, trying to figure out, how do we put together a full 90 minutes? How do we bounce back when we give up a goal? As you mentioned, giving up one goal has led to a second goal. That to me is a definitive reasoning why this team is struggling mentally. You're not able to rally after giving up that goal. Instead, you're falling apart. That's a leadership issue. That's a communication issue. And so this team has to do a better job in terms of planning for the future and making sure that they're ready whatever's thrown their way, injuries, adversity, international breaks where you're missing players, whatever it is, you have to be ready for the future. And you know where you can be ready for the future? That's with our friends over at TrueMark Financial Credit Union. Tyler was ready on that one. With TrueMark, you can always prepare for the future because TrueMark Financial Credit Union gives you the chance to plan for all the what ifs, all the plans of buying a house, going on vacation, buying a car, getting that college fund together for your kids. With TrueMark Financial Credit Union, they have better rates, low fees, and they also just allow you to take control of your money. It's very important. I was actually just calling a bank the other day, like what's happening with my money? It's very important to know where your money is going and making sure you're getting the best rates that work for you. So over at TrueMark Financial Credit Union, they also have a debit card that earns you reward points. I love being able to spend and get rewards points because that means I'm saving money essentially.
Hey.
It helps you justify all the spending that you're doing because you know you're getting some points back. And every time you select credit instead of debit at checkout, you actually earn some CU rewards points. And as points add up, you can redeem them for cash, you can travel, you can retail them for gift cards, merchandise, and much more. Plus, with TrueMark, you can also monitor your credit scores with Savvy Money, which is also great. I'm a big proponent of actively checking my finances like every day. It's the Virgo in me. And with TrueMark, you can regularly check your credit score for financial awareness and error detection. You can also protect against identity theft by monitoring for unauthorized activities. So build that financial stability by improving your credit habits, tracking your money, and maintaining a healthy score. TrueMark Financial is federally insured by the NCUA as an equal opportunity lender. For more information, visit TrueMark.com/PHLY.
Awesome stuff. All right. Well, now that Renee helped you with managing your money, let's try to make a little bit of money. And that's with our friends over at the BetPark Sportsbook app. Guys, listen, that was a wild Euro and Copa America final that we had yesterday, right? Well, guys, it doesn't end here. Maybe for soccer, not for some of these sports. We're in the midst of a great baseball season, which, by the way, tonight, the home run derby. Tomorrow, we got the All-Star game. Should be a lot of fun. We'll have the MLS All-Star game coming up soon as well, but we're obviously in the full swing of MLS season as well. Guys, the Olympics are right around the corner, so there's still a lot of sports in the heart of the summer where you guys can, if you're feeling lucky, can make a buck or two here, all right? It's important to let you know that we're also brought to you by the BetPark Sportsbook app. Get in the zone with the BetPark Sportsbook app here today. Win big with all-day action. Win your first $10 bet and earn up to $125 in sports bonus bets. You play for fun. You love to win. You bet BetParks. Download the app and play with us today. Must be 21 or older. Please gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants some help, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. Thank you so much to our friends over at BetParks. Renee, John brings up a good point, which we're going to have to talk about eventually. What if we do win the wooden spoon this year? And what does that actually change for the Philadelphia Union? Obviously, we've never been in that territory. We've had some bad years, which I actually have a fun nugget for you guys in just a second. But that's going to be a big problem, guys. And honestly, like if that happens, I'm curious what that does to Jay and his whole mindset about, the youth academy. And we're not buying players because if we do buy a player in a certain position, they're going to take up the spot for the youngster that's coming up. So, I mean, right, like that could change things dramatically. Mm-hmm. Like wooden spoons are not fun. Well, they can be fun because you can win it twice and you become Cincinnati. You have some great times now. But this is going to be a problem, Renee.
Yeah, listen, the Union haven't been this bad in a very long time. And actually, I want to take a little trip down memory lane, and not good memory lane, of looking at some of the bad seasons for the Philadelphia Union, because this is unfortunately some territory that we've been in before. And I ironically was reading a piece from back in 2015 about the Union when this was around June of 2015. And as I was reading it, I was like, wow, I can almost copy and paste this exact same piece. And it can be repurposed for today, because the things they were talking about at that point was the fact that the Union had struggled tremendously with allowing goals in the first half.
So
9 of 16 games that they had allowed. But also they had the worst first half goal differential at the time. They were worst across one of the worst teams in set pieces. And overall, like the same issues of then are the same issues of now. The Union oh, here we go. I found it now. So back in 2015, at the midway point of the 2015 season, the Union were the worst team across Major League Soccer. They had a .88 points per game average, which was the league's worst mark. So averaging less than a point per game, which means they're not winning or tying. Their goal differential at the time was -11, which was the league's worst. And they, at that time, were the first team to reach double digits in the loss column this season, which is where they are currently sitting as well with those 10 losses. They also, at that point, were still dealing with the issues. If you remember back then, it was Maurice Adu. Shannon Williams was on the team around this time as well, our buddy that joined us recently. You think of some of the names that were here, the Union were having issues of making acquisitions to bring in players, big name players, that were not able to help. It was not translating onto the pitch. They had issues with the construction of the team. Sound familiar? They didn't have many injuries as the issue as much, but they weren't able to win games because they weren't prepared for the road trips, the injuries, and they weren't able to compete with the rest of the league. At that time in 2015, it was said they could not compete with the modern league on a consistent basis because of some of these aspects of the team. And those were, they didn't have the USL club pipeline, which that has changed at least. They do have the homegrowns, but take that as maybe that's too much of the focus now. They didn't have a strong enough bench, and they didn't have the guys they were paying money for were not guys that were actually helping them on the pitch. And you look at someone we talked about, Ua, for instance, and Danny Gazdag, your higher paid players who maybe aren't consistently producing the way that they should be in terms of what their role was for this team. So that point, the questions were, should we be firing the coach? Should we be, should we be selling the team? How do we fix the team? How do you get them to stop making bad personnel decisions? And how do we get them to have not only a strong 11, but depth? So that was back in 2015 where the team was at. Of course, Jim Curtin came to the Union in 2014 and helped them tremendously be able to reach the playoffs for the first time and different things. This was part of that era of Jim Curtin building this team up. They traded Shannon Williams to the Dynamo in 2015. Just for context of where we were at that time, they had a successful run in the 2015 Lamar Hunt U.S.
Made the final.
Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup. Oh my gosh.
Jeez, tells how you really feel, Renee.
Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup. Second consecutive appearance in the Open Cup final. It's because I was saying Cup and Hunt at the same time. My bad. But a lot has changed since then, but has it really? Or are we in the exact same spot?
It feels like it. So I looked up the worst loss that year. We kind of still do. We always struggled in LA.
Yes, 5-1 loss.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So this starting lineup is going to make everybody laugh. So starting goal, we had Mr. Brian Silvestri. Your back line, Shannon Williams, Richie Marquez. Oh, man, Mr. Marquez. Mo Adu. We had Mo Adu start and Ray Gaddis. That was your back line. We obviously ran the 4-2-3-1. Your two central defensive midfielders, the captain, Brian Carroll, Vincent Noguera. You had your three midfielders, Andrew Wenger and Zach Pfeffer as your wingers, Christian Maidana as your 10, and CJ Sapong as the 9. So, that's not a terrible starting 11, but yeah. I mean, they were going up against the Galaxy. Galaxy still had Robbie Keane. There was no David Beckham anymore. There was no Landon Donovan on the squad. So they got shellacked. But yeah, I'm just looking over some of these years. The first year we only had 31 points, but that was a different league.
Yeah.
Inaugural year is always tough to get, a good team in your expansion. It's not like Atlanta United or St. Louis where you come off and your guns are blazing to start off your tenure in the MLS. But also in 2012, that was rough because that was the year after they made the playoffs for the first time, and so they had some fluctuation with the roster. But they actually went through I believe, a 7-game winless streak in that point. So there's been some. Listen, we all knew in that first 10 years, it wasn't great. We had 2 playoff appearances, and so right now it feels much worse because you're essentially coming off of the best era you've ever had in your history. And we talked about that starting lineup I told you against the Galaxy, that was not a bad lineup. And this lineup right now, you would say, is not a terrible lineup what we're running out there, but it goes to show you guys the attrition of a season, especially in this league. And it's just been really, really rough to watch. And obviously circumstances do happen right now with this team. Injuries and call-ups are killing them, even though the front office probably could have helped them out a little bit more. But it just goes to show how times have changed, but some things may not change.
Yeah, because honestly, the early days for the Union, when you look at the the Nowak, John Hackworth era, back when Freddie Adu was on the team. So much new was in those early seasons. So even when John Hackworth took over in 2012, and his era was, through 2014 before Jim Curtin came on board, he takes the role fully as head coach. They were still able to kind of be in the mix. So in that 2012 season, they finished, that was the third season for the team. They finished in 8th in the East. They finished 15th in the MLS overall. But they did do a good job of making a little run. Like, they were able to still make a splash once they got to the postseason, making it into the semifinals of that 2012 U.S. Open Cup, doing something. I don't know if this team can do that. And I think to what you were saying, the hardest part is this is a group that's coming off of 2022, off of that 2020 Supporters Shield, off of an MLS Cup final. That's where the bar is not the same as what it was in 2012, 2013.
Right.
Even when Jim took over in 2014, you look at, this was a team that wasn't making the playoffs, and Jim can help them get there. They bring on Andre Blake in the first round, that first overall pick. You started to see the change of that time. That's when they brought in Ali Bedoya and started bringing in some of the same names that we have today. So to have them build so much from 2014, I'll say 2014 when Jim Curtin was head coach to now, to then see how this has dropped off, now that's what's the most frustrating. Mm-hmm. So if you were wondering, is this the worst start for the Union of all time in the existence of this club, I would actually argue yes.
Yeah.
And I think it's not even just because of their record or statistically, because, again, offensively, this team is in games. Yes, you'd love to see them get that third goal, that insurance goal, that second goal, depending on, of course, the match, because it's been a lot of that. But on the other side of it, it's just been the defensive issues, the inability to win at home, now the inability to win at all, and the fact that this is a team that just 2 seasons ago, we were talking about winning it all, falling short in PKs, one of the most exciting games we've ever seen in soccer, period, in sports. So it does feel like this one does not hit the same, because it's not a team that's an expansion club that's taking their lumps. It's a team that's been winning and now suddenly is the worst team in the East. Yeah. That fast that it swung.
And listen, that's the thing with salary caps. Obviously, many soccer fans know that outside the MLS, their leagues are ran differently. There's not really salary caps, right? So that's kind of the beauty and honestly the downfall of having a salary cap. Every year is different. Every year you have to have a different plan. And for the U, after 2022, the plan was to kind of still bargain shop. If you guys remember, we did do some more some buys in the league. You were able to bring Damian Lowe, you were able to bring Andres Pereira. But that moment right there, that 2022, after 2022, going to 2023 season, that off season, that one was so critical, right? Because you needed to keep the momentum going from that MLS Cup final. And unfortunately, they just did not capitalize. That was the worst transfer period for Ernst Tanner. Only Damian Lowe really panned out of the 3 signings. Yeah. And this is kind of where we're at now. It's kind of been a domino effect. And now, Jay Sugarman a couple months ago told our boy Dan Ciano that, hey, I'm going to try to find a killer in possession. And that's fine. But, what are you really going to find in the summer, dude? What are we really going to find here come summertime? So it's just super rough. The thing is that there are some bright spots. We brought up Tai Baribo. I really wanted to bring that up.
Oh, yeah.
Jesus Bueno has really stepped up, too. That was someone that kind of got lost in translation at the beginning of the year. There was, just bodies in front of him in the depth chart, and he's getting some opportunities now. He's looking pretty solid. Almost had a goal. Got called offsides on Saturday. It's all right, but... And that's the thing, that there are bright spots, but because this team is just not putting the results out there, it's just super tough. I mean, we could have had a Kevin Sullivan debut on Saturday if it wasn't for Canada's child labor laws. It's hilarious.
It's hilarious, actually.
I
do think the issue with the Union comes down to you're having guys in your starting roles that should not be starters. And I think when you look at talent-wise, I don't think they're playing bad soccer. I think the problem is the guys that you're starting the game off with should be the guys you're finishing the game off with. And you need to bolster and strengthen your starting 11, starting with the back line, honestly. And so throughout this group, you see them make a few substitutions this past weekend, and there's been a drop-off at the end of the game. You'd love to have a Jesus Bueno, Quinn Sullivan, Ali Bedoya coming off the bench if you could. Imagine if that's your depth pieces versus those being your starting guys. Imagine if on the back line you have a Jack Elliott or a Jakob Glesnes, who one of them honestly is your backup center back, and you can rely heavily on Damian one of them and someone, because I just think the two of them are struggling, to be honest. So I do feel as though part of the issue is you're asking guys to do more than they really should be doing. Like their role should not be a 90-minute starter. Their role should be a complimentary piece, a role piece, off the bench piece, someone that maybe you're calling on now, honestly. Maybe that's the other way to look at it. Like instead of some of these guys having started the entire season, now they should be getting their starts. Now they should be getting those opportunities to play 90 minutes versus instead being a little bit burnt out because you're overextending them when you shouldn't have to. So unfortunately, spin cycle. The Union have 2 games this week. They play New England on Wednesday, 7:30, and then they play Nashville Saturday, 7:30. And if you're paying attention, if this was a trivia question, the 2 teams that the Union have beaten in the last 18 games are
Nashville and New England.
Nashville and New England. So a positive possibly is they get to play the 2 teams this week that are the only 2 teams they've beaten in the last 18 outings, dating back to April 6th. Woo, that's a long time because we are mid-July. So that should be, there's not even much to preview here because at the end of the day, we know it doesn't matter who's on the pitch. It doesn't matter who's healthy, who's not. The Union just need to play 90 minutes of soccer.
I think that's all we should be asking for.
That's it.
And like,
that's all I want.
I thought they did that against the Red Bull, which is why it's frustrating coming back to Saturday, and they just did not. So that's really all I'm asking for here is to play a full 90 minutes. You're going to be back at home. I really don't know what the crowd's going to look like on a Wednesday night match when this team looks the way they do right now.
Yeah.
And also All-Star game's going to be on the same day. So, or tomorrow, I'm sorry. It's going to be tomorrow. But I just don't see how this team is going to get out of this little skid that they're on. But if we can just simply ask for them to play a full 90 minutes, I think that's fair to ask for from this team.
That's it.
Just play a full 90.
That's all we need. Starting Wednesday, put together a full 90 minutes, let the chips fall where they may, and see if you can start to grind out some results. Now, this past weekend, aside from just the Union, and we talked about a little bit earlier on in the show, we've got to circle back to it as we wrap up here. Spain wins a record 4th European Championship title this past weekend. That was an exciting win over England. It was definitely crazy. There was a lot of chaos that came out of that as well. Some fighting that went down. England fans especially were fighting each other, allegedly.
Breaking news.
Yeah, breaking news. England fans fought each other. But also, for Spain, they've now beaten 4 past World Cup winners along the way to winning these championships. It's a phenomenal group. And for Spain soccer in general, for the women and the men, you have the women who won the World Cup. You have the men who just won Euros. Exciting times. Exciting times also for Argentina. Oh, JP, I'm so sorry. Argentina won their record 16th Copa America title. They defeated you in Colombia 1-0.
JP, you are directly responsible for the loss.
I literally was like, it's Messi versus JP going down Sunday afternoon. The bigger story. First of all, Shakira does not age. I'm just going to throw that out there. She's beautiful. She does not age. But we should have been excited about the soccer and the halftime show. And instead, we had all the fans that burst into the stadium and all the extracurriculums that delayed the game significantly, that caused the teams to have to go off the pitch for warm-ups, and now has a lot of people wondering, wait a minute, since this is the Hard Rock is a venue for the World Cup, is the United States, are they ready? Are we ready as a country? And I don't know, to be honest. It is a totally different organization that's involved with security and things like that around the World Cup versus like Copa America. But it was not a good look to see fans bursting in without tickets, robbing the stores, trampling each other, fighting, and that see so much of a delay that they had to literally like, okay, we're going to pause everything, evacuate the teams, and let's get rid of all these extra people that were in suites, in the stores. They were everywhere. Chaos, JP.
It was a chaotic.
Colombia, Argentina.
It was a chaotic weekend, first off. But like, honestly, like those scenes from yesterday was so disappointing. and honestly,
so
like, it wasn't just Colombia, it was Argentina too. Obviously,
yes, I saw blue and I saw yellow jerseys.
It was on both sides. And the other thing too is that, like, what happened last night is not on the country of the United States. That's on the governing body that kind of set up this event, right? So when it comes to the World Cup, it's really who organizes. So in this case, I'm assuming it'd be FIFA who's in charge of organizing this. They need to do a better job. Like, the fact that this match got delayed to over an hour is
Yeah.
unacceptable. I mean, it's a Sunday night, people. I mean, I get everyone's going to party, but some of us have to work, right? We have to wake up early. We have to go to, some people have to go to summer school, right? Like, we like, that should not be happening. But then, yes, the vandalizing. I mean, I'm sure you saw the escalator.
Oh,
That was
so
absolutely
bad.
terrible. I mean, for the love of God, we have Colombian fans traveling through the vents to get into the game. Like, it was absolutely a wild, wild scene. And the worst part about it, I hear on the broadcast, I was watching it on Univision, and they were saying, like, they didn't feel like there was enough security for the stands. Like, that's extremely scary. And the thing is, too, Renee, this was after what happened in Charlotte.
Bingo.
After with the Uruguay players going at it with the Colombian fans. Like, this whole entire, you've heard Marcelo Bielsa, you've heard Jesse Marsh, you've heard so many people from all these teams come out and just talk about what's been going on with the Copa America. It was poorly ran all around. Congratulations, Argentina. And honestly, I'm not mad at Colombia. I'm extremely proud of them. Like, the fact is, they played really well. And Argentina's Argentina at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It was a really entertaining match until the end. Some controversial calls, too. But, like, that part is definitely scary because in 2 years, we're going to be back for a World Cup. And that's going to be much bigger.
Yes.
And are these cities, are these venues ready for what's about to come? This is in 1994 where, you know, a lot of people are not really aware about soccer besides, you know, the immigrants or the first generations who live here. No, there's going to be a different story. People are going to be traveling from outside the country. There's going to be the people in the country as well. So now you have a little bit, you had a little taste. And I'll see how you plan here in 2 years because it's extremely important. You can't mess this up for us.
Yeah, and it takes away from the game, unfortunately. Like, you look at Messi goes down injured, and
Did you see that ankle? Renee?
Yeah,
That was ugly.
I know, it's ugly. It was a non-contact ankle. I was actually worried initially. I'm like, is it a knee? Is it an Achilles? Like, those non-contact injuries are the first to jump out. But to see him go down twice, the second one, of course, was it.
Last Copa America.
Last Copa America, he goes out. Like, this Copa America in general had a lot that happened in it. And as you mentioned, we were just talking about this with the games in Charlotte and how there was a lack of security and fights that broke out. And here we are in the final Sunday. There were so many storylines there. And the one that took over every storyline was the fact that you had people sneaking in, fighting in, barging past security, squeezing into gates, like whatever it took. And to be honest, I don't think this, people have to realize the passion of soccer fans. It is nothing like we see in the United States with football, baseball, basketball, hockey, anything, soccer. None of that compares to, on the global stage, how passionate people are about the game of football, soccer. They love soccer and they're willing. And I think, to be honest, to be so understaffed was expecting, and I was talking about this with somebody, like, this is not your average, like, oh, the Super Bowl or, oh, the NBA championship. Like, no, when it comes to a world game, you have people flying from all over the world. They're coming there for possibly their only chance to see their team win an international title. For some of them, this is like the only chance to be able to be in person and see this happen. The only chance to see, or the last chance to see someone like Messi. So they're going to do whatever it takes. And how many times do we see fights break out and all types of things that happen, protesting and people throwing stuff on the field? Like, it's chaotic. I love the passion, but the passion also has, for all the good of it, the negative is that fans will go too far at times. And I just feel like, as you mentioned, it's not just the United States of America. It's the actual staffing around Copa America that just anticipated this was going to be like it's not a little golf clap PGA Tour turnout. This is going to be people coming in ready to literally fight for their team if that's what it takes. The passion, it is like life or death for some people in that sense of, like, I wait my entire life for this moment and I'm not going to miss it. And I'm not going to let my team lose. And I'm going to do whatever it takes to help them win, even if it means I'm bursting into the stadium.
You know what's sad too? The amount of people who spent thousands of dollars and couldn't get in because of these. You know, I said it
That's
was like,
sad.
I said earlier, like, it felt like a little bit of entitledness from some of these fans who just barge in to go to this game thinking that they're entitled to go to this game. And there's people out there who spent thousands of dollars and couldn't even get in. There's a Colombian influencer who I follow. You know, he's like documenting his whole experience down there. And, you know, he's literally he took a picture sitting on the curb because he couldn't get in. All these people that just could not get in. And, you know, then you go into the game and there, you know, there's people who don't have a seat because someone's sitting in their seat because they barged into Hard Rock Stadium. And so yeah, we have 2 years here. Like, I wonder if they just thought like, oh, it's just soccer. There's no soccer fans in America. Like, that's just absolutely terrible. Real quick, guys, just want to thank all of our diehards, everyone who's tuning into today's PHLY Union podcast. We genuinely do appreciate it. Thank you so much to you guys.
Absolutely. As we wrap up here, quite the chaotic weekend of soccer in general. The Union are right in the mix of that, bringing the chaos. It's a great time for soccer, though. Despite whether your team's on a winning streak or winning skid, it's an exciting time for soccer. There's so many more eyes on the game. There's so many people talking about it. This weekend was no different as we get to see more international competitions unfolding and more to come. So we're going to continue unpacking all that here on PHLY Union Podcast. Of course, Wednesday night, the Union with a game, a chance to break this winless skid, a chance to get back into the getting 3 points, feeling good. We'll see if that happens this upcoming Wednesday. Another chance also at home to right the wrongs. Back-to-back games at home for them. Actually, they're going to have a nice stretch of 3 games at home before getting on the road against Red Bull. So 4 games that they're local. 3 at home, 1 at Red Bull. Get 3 points. We'll see if that can start on Wednesday night. So for Tyler, JP, myself, Renee, thank you all, as JP mentioned, for tuning in. We appreciate you, Patrick, Jillian, John, Jose, everybody that's been tuning in live on YouTube, Twitter, watching it back on or listening back on podcast platforms. Thanks so much. Fingers crossed. It's time to get back in the win column. We'll see you guys next time here on PHLY Union Podcast, live next Monday, 2 p.m. See you then.
We all silly like the mayor.